or self-report that they're ready for retirement, often we see a financial advisor is somewhere in their life. Have you heard this kind of thing? And then they go, ergo, therefore, financial advisors cause comfort and readiness. Interesting argument. Anybody here with a science background? And so what might we think, first of all, of someone that proposes that a thing is a research piece, or we've done some studies? It sounds kind of scientific, doesn't it? Could you, in fact, do a scientific experiment that withholds financial advice from a control group so that they don't get it? No, you're laughing because you're going, wait a second, I never looked at it. It's kind of ridiculous. Now, you might be able to in certain countries in the world where they can control everybody, but we would say as scientists it's probably something unethical about withholding stuff from people, right? But they present it as being pretty official and scientific. Now, something else we know in science is that sometimes research projects are paid for by certain parties or bodies. Sometimes maybe those parties or bodies are interested in particular outcomes. Now, if we saw a bunch of people that were self-reporting, they're ready for retirement or confident in their finances, how do we know that they in fact are? So one of the things I talk about in my book is the difference between being actually ready for retirement and merely feeling okay because your advisor has convinced you to feel okay. A sense of confidence is not enough to determine that value is received. Feeling okay in the wake of some problems is not real value, in my opinion. But let's get down to what the ultimate issue is with this kind of thing. A distinction between cause and effect and what we might call correlation or coincidence. But we'll go with correlation. So let me tell you what this means. In Latin, I'm going to show off now for the science guys, post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's a logical fallacy that says, just because something happened here, and this happened earlier in time, that somehow this caused this. So here's an example. Let's suppose for a moment that I'm a luxury car manufacturer, and I signed to commission an experiment where I look at a bunch of lawyers that are successful, and I notice that most, if not all of these successful lawyers have expensive, fancy cars. Shall I conclude in the market that the reason they're successful lawyers is because they have fancy cars? So it's okay that we communicate like this, but it's also reasonable that we wonder as intelligent people about where we're going with these kinds of communications. Try to pick my words carefully. Similar one. Now, heard a little less of this lately, in part because now all the big companies are embracing robo-advisory platforms in one shape or form somewhere, right? But a couple of years ago, this was more common. Criticisms against robo-enhanced platforms. What would they say? These are quotes that I read on social media. A robo-advisor will not sit down with you and discuss the benefits of blah, 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 blah. A robo-advisor, that's not necessarily their job. That could easily be your job, which is why you're using it. On the face of it, it's not a criticism of robo-advisory as a concept. Or, here's my favorite, robo-advisors use static algorithms and cannot act as a fiduciary. Actual quote. I find this one was chuckling to me. The reason I say this is because some of the best-known robo-advisory platforms in Canada sub out their funds. Croft Financial Group, the company that I work with and sit on the investment review committee, was a recipient of some of those funds. And I can tell you, there was a bunch of people there doing a whole bunch of really hard work. This is actual people doing actual money management, which is why the heck they were giving us the money in the first place to look after, right? We actually picked for this. And here's the other part. This is the most humorous part of this. Portfolio managers are the ones with the fiduciary duty. And so advisors that would point at another entity and say they don't have a fiduciary duty, as if to suggest that they in fact themselves do, which they don't, I would wonder about that communication. I'm trying to pick my words carefully. Here's my recent one, and I look for this stuff all the time. Look, I don't have a slide for it, it's so recent. I spend too much time on LinkedIn. So if you want to look for me or look for some of these topics, that's the place to do. So recently I saw on LinkedIn this kind of thing. I want to be vague enough so I don't call anybody out. Article was published, looked by a very reputable organization. The article headline was essentially identifying a category of financial services products and saying that they're going to triple in cost over the next 30 years. Triple in cost over 30 years. Right, you know where I'm going with this, right, guys? And so, of course, the social media, so there was a number of very positive comments, right? Could you imagine what those people did for a living, the ones that positively commented? Would we be shocked to hear that they were in the financial services industry? No. So I'm not very good at math, folks. I'll be the first to admit it. Words are my thing that I like. But I tried to figure out quickly what inflation rate tripling over 30 years would represent. I came up with about 4%. So I made a comment, and I was corrected by one of the people commenting, and it was probably about 3.75%. Now, right. So when you use inflationary figures for your planning, what number do you normally use these days? When I was doing the work, we'd pick 3%. Has it changed significantly from then? Is that still normal? 2? You're going with 2 these days? Okay, so maybe 3.75 is quite a bit more than 2. My point being is that an expression such as it's going to triple over 30 years might be understood as what's recognized as an improper sales tactic, which is to produce, and this is now from one of IFB's recent courses, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but best as I can recall, that if you create a sense of urgency to induce the purchase of a product or investment, it might be considered an improper sales tactic. So when you present all true statements in an article, but the combined effect is to maybe make someone think that a thing is going up in price so fast that they better buy it now. I'm not saying that was the intent. I don't know. But it does make you wonder. So I've been rambling on a bit. I want to remind you what I'm talking about. This idea of intellectual honesty. It's not just a matter of putting out true statements. It's a matter of doing it in a way that actually promotes informed decision making. So, integrity. I've already said it's a necessary condition for establishing trust and trustworthiness. I pulled out the Principle 2 from the FP Canada Code that refers to it as well. It says, integrity means rigorous adherence to moral rules and duties imposed by honesty and justice. Frankly, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, and I think I'm pretty good at these topics. So it's a lot of words in there that I think is supposed to look like it's saying a bunch, but I don't know what kind of guidance that is. But the second part of it is quite useful, because it says that part of integrity means not just following the rules, which is true, it's about the spirit of the rules. It's the reason that the rules are there. You know, we could do things and say, well, you know, I didn't break a rule, this must be okay. And what they're reminding us here is not just about the rules, it's about the spirit, or what I would say, the values behind the rules. The why the rules are there, the motivation for what we're trying to accomplish. So the better definition, and I didn't make up this comes from some CSI, so Canadian Securities Institute courses, that describe integrity as an alignment of values, so there's that values word, with action. This resonates with me. It tells me two things. It tells me that how I appear to the market will be a little bit about my behavior, but that might not be enough. That I need to be communicating about values as well, about why I'm doing this. Why is it important? Here's something from my 1892 Webster's Dictionary. That's not a typo. I do keep old encyclopedias and dictionaries around for shits and giggles. This is what I think is fun. So I looked up integrity because I wanted to get a sense if it had changed much. And there's actually some additional information in there. Integrity comprehends the whole moral character, but has a special reference to uprightness in mutual dealings, transfers of property, and agencies for others. So the 1800s Webster's Dictionary really aligns integrity with business activities in my mind. Very telling. So let's start to apply this idea of values and behavior to the next case study. So you're a CFP registration holder, or maybe not, maybe just observing somebody for some reason. And you get a sense that they're recommending solutions. You're identifying what you think is a material error when describing the costs and products, and a material omission when discussing the compensation. What do you do? Does it matter what role you're playing in that relationship or that meeting? Sorry? It would matter. Yeah, and according to FB Canada, it does matter. We're going to get to that in just a couple of slides here. So here's what FB Canada rules of conduct say. This is the kind of thing they want you to be thinking about. First of all, you should not engage or associate with any individuals engaged in conduct involving fraud, deceit, misrepresentation, or knowingly make false or misleading statements. Now, they didn't say knowingly deceive or misrepresent. There might be baked into that a desire to deceive. It's not clear. But it's reasonable to think that if you're involved with someone who's not communicating effectively, that results in a client not understanding or being deceived, I'll use the word loosely in this case, but not understanding, your first obligation is you're not supposed to associate with them. That's what they're telling you, but they want you to do more. If this is someone you're supposed to be monitoring, or either their manager, quote-unquote, trainer, whatever it is, that you as a certificant shall provide reasonable and prudent professional supervision of any subordinate or third party to whom you assign work or whose work is subject to your review. So yes, sir, you do have an extra obligation if you're in that meeting, if that person's considered to be your subordinate. That doesn't really tell us what we should be doing in this case, though. It just means that we have a response, we have an obligation, but what behavior should we be acting upon now? Well, here's what they say. Whatever you do, first of all, don't impugn their reputation. If you have any concerns regarding unprofessional conduct, bring it to the Standards Council. Now, this might actually differ from your own corporate policies and procedures. If you looked into it or you talked to a branch manager or chief compliance officer, they might say, no, if you've got concerns about our reps, you bring it to me. That's what they might say. It's a reasonable thing to say. I think I might have asked my people to do that. The last time I was chief compliance officer, I had 110 reps. And so in that kind of sample group, you're going to get all kinds of characters. So yes, I would have asked them to tell me. But according to rules of conduct for FB Canada, this is number 4, you shall promptly inform Standard Council where you have knowledge that the certificate may have committed an egregious violation and that raises substantial questions regarding their honesty, trustworthiness, and fitness. So you're supposed to report, but don't impugn their reputation, which means you may not want to call them out in front of the client, which also creates a bit of a problem because the client should know right away. I'm just saying, ethics are not easy. This is why it's called the dilemma. You're being torn in 2 different reasonable directions. Do I correct the advisor now in front of the client and run the risk that I'm hurting their reputation in front of the client? Or do I report them right away? Yes, sir.
I'd ask the individual to withdraw himself briefly, ask the client, excuse us for a minute or something we have to attend to, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Would you like a cup of coffee while we're at it or whatever? Trying to deflect the situation.
Sounds like a reasonable response.
Mano a mano, without resorting to that. That's a very drastic measure and has no appropriateness in normal human relations.
Okay, so the gentleman is saying that he doesn't like this CFP Code of Ethics. Are you a CFP designation holder?
I'm not a CFP, but this particular measure of reporting someone outright without remedying the situation, making an honest mistake on the part of the other advisor, is a very, very drastic measure. And from the normal course of human relations, it's a very drastic measure.
And I don't disagree with the gentleman. He's saying it's drastic. My job here is not to criticize or support FB Canada's codes. I am a critic where I think criticism is appropriate. I don't have a criticism in this particular presentation, but I do have ones like that. So just for your comfort, sir, I'm not advocating. I'm reporting to the audience what their expectations of you are, without trying to make a comment on it. But your point's noted. So this idea of integrity as being an alignment of values with behavior or action. Let's see how this concept applies to this particular example. What kind of values might be represented in those ethics or professional responsibility comments or quotes? Perhaps the values, second paragraph, the values are things such as being honest, making sure the client is making an informed decision, protecting the consumer might be a value, protecting the reputation of the industry might be a value, you have a duty to supervise, so those are the values, and then your behavior might be things like the first paragraph, making sure that disclosures are complete, supervising the advisor properly, informing FB Canada if that's the behavior you decide to take as they're suggesting, etc. So integrity here is not just the behavior of reporting or supervising. Integrity is understanding the values behind it. That's what this concept of integrity means. So it's ensuring that you're aligning both values with behavior. Third and final case study.